Marta sat quietly in her bedroom, feeling the weight of a secret she couldn't share with anyone. Her life had changed since her mother, Clara, had remarried 3 years ago. Victor, her stepfather, was kind, caring, and always seemed to take an interest in her life. At first, his attention felt comforting, but over time, it became something else, something she didn't understand. Victor had always been a presence in the house, a supportive husband to Clara and a father figure to Marta. The three of them seemed like a perfect family, and Clara was happier than Marta had ever seen her. But as time passed, Marta noticed that Victor's attention toward her wasn't just fatherly. He started lingering in conversation, offering compliments that made her feel uncomfortable, and giving her looks that felt too personal. She pushed the feelings aside, convincing herself it was nothing, that Victor was just being friendly. But it all changed one summer evening when Clara was away on a weekend trip for work. The house felt different, quieter, and Marta tried to keep her distance. She stayed in her room, avoiding Victor as much as possible. But the air was thick with tension, and Marta knew something was wrong. "Marta," Victor's voice echoed through the hallway, pulling her from her thoughts. She hesitated before answering, her heart racing. "Yeah, come downstairs. We can watch a movie together. Your mom won't be back until tomorrow." Marta didn't want to go. She knew it would be easier to stay in her room and pretend everything was normal. But she didn't want to seem rude either, so she reluctantly agreed. As she made her way downstairs, she told herself it was just a movie, that nothing would happen, and everything would be fine. Victor was sitting on the couch, already pouring a glass of wine. The atmosphere felt strange, but Marta tried to act normal. She sat on the opposite end of the couch, hoping to maintain distance. The movie played, but she wasn't watching. All she could feel was Victor's presence, his eyes on her. The room felt smaller, and the silence between them was deafening. Eventually, Victor moved closer, his arm resting on the back of the couch near her. Marta's body tensed. She didn't want to be there. She didn't want to feel this way. She shifted uncomfortably, but Victor didn't seem to notice, or maybe he didn't care. His hand brushed against her shoulder, and she pulled away slightly, hoping he'd stop. But the tension only grew. "You're so grown up now," he said softly, his voice unsettling. Marta's heart raced. She didn't know how to respond. Everything about this moment felt wrong, but she was frozen, unable to speak or move. Victor reached out again, but this time, Marta quickly stood up, breaking the moment. "I'm going to bed," she said abruptly, her voice shaking. Victor looked surprised but didn't push any further. He simply nodded, his eyes lingering on her as she hurried back up the stairs to her room. Marta closed the door behind her, locking it, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't believe what had almost happened, and the guilt and confusion swirled inside her. She didn't know what to do or who to talk to. How could she tell her mother? How could she explain the uncomfortable interactions that seemed to be escalating? The very thought of breaking her mother's heart with this truth was unbearable. Clara had found happiness with Victor, and Marta didn't want to be the one to shatter it. The next morning, Clara returned home, cheerful and full of stories from her trip. As she greeted Victor with a hug and a kiss, Marta stood in the background, watching, her stomach twisting with guilt. Victor acted as if nothing had happened, his smile easy and familiar. It was as if the night before had been a bad dream, but Marta knew better. The tension between her and Victor had crossed a line, and she couldn't unsee the shift in their relationship. From that day on, Marta found herself avoiding Victor as much as possible. She felt trapped in her own home, trying to pretend everything was normal when nothing was. The guilt of keeping this secret weighed heavy on her, but she couldn't bring herself to speak the truth. Every time her mother laughed with Victor or talked about their future together, Marta felt a pang of sadness, knowing that she was keeping something so dark from the woman who had done everything for her. But the truth seemed too dangerous, too destructive. As the days passed, Marta's life became a balancing act, hiding her discomfort around Victor while maintaining the appearance of a happy family. But deep down, she knew the truth couldn't stay hidden forever. Marta thought she could move past the awkwardness, that somehow, if she just ignored it, things would go back to normal. But things between her and Victor didn't improve, they got worse. The tension was always there, lurking beneath the surface. It was in the way he looked at her, the way his hand would linger too long when he passed her a glass at dinner, or the way he always seemed to find an excuse to be alone with her when Clara wasn't around. Weeks passed, and Marta's anxiety only grew. She became more withdrawn, avoiding the house as much as possible. After school, she'd stay late for extra activities, even if she wasn't interested. Anything to delay coming home. Clara, ever the caring mother, noticed the change but chalked it up to typical teenage behavior. She thought Marta was just going through a phase, maybe dealing with school stress or friendship drama. But one evening, everything came to a head. It was a Friday night, and Clara had gone out with some friends, leaving Marta and Victor home alone. Marta had been in her room, hoping to avoid any interaction, when there was a soft knock on her door. Her heart sank immediately. "Marta, can I come in?" Victor's voice was calm, but it sent a chill down her spine. She hesitated, pretending not to hear, hoping he'd go away. But the knock came again, firmer this time. "Marta, we need to talk." She knew she couldn't avoid him forever, so she reluctantly opened the door. Victor stood there, looking relaxed but serious. "Can we sit down?" he asked, motioning toward her bed. She didn't want to, but something in his tone made it clear that this wasn't just a casual conversation. Marta sat down on the edge of the bed, her hands nervously fidgeting in her lap. Victor sat beside her, too close for comfort. The room felt stifling, the air thick with unspoken tension. "I know things have been different between us," Victor began, his voice low. "And I want to clear the air." Marta didn't respond. She couldn't look at him, her eyes fixed on the floor. She wanted this conversation to end before it even started. "I don't want you to feel uncomfortable around me," he continued, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. "You're like family to me." The words twisted inside her, filling her with a mix of anger and confusion. If she was like family to him, why did everything feel so wrong?